Hey guys, welcome to Dear Young One with Olakoni. And on today's episode, we're taking a very critical topic. We're talking about how to choose a career path. What is the best career option for you? And this is really targeted at the young graduate who is fresh out of university, the young professional who is still just a few months into a new job, and you're still trying to decide if you're actually on the right career path or what exactly is the right career path for you. And that's something a lot of young people face. And part of why I'm actually preparing this video series is actually to advise you on how to take those kind of decisions and how to be the best you can be in your career. The decision to take a particular career path is one that must be taken with a lot of patience and open-mindedness. The fact is, you have to ask yourself a series of questions. There are a lot of things that have to go into the consideration to decide on what career path you should choose. Let me start by running you through a few of them. Number one is you need to ask yourself if you want to be a specialist in a particular field or you want to have a career which would involve a series of jobs across a particular sector or industry, and you just want to be flexible enough to know that you acquire skills along the way that enable you to suit into any of those roles that you may fall into in that particular industry because you just want to be in that industry. Or you may decide to have a particular career where you are not a specialist, but you move from industry to industry because you really want to show how adaptable you are, or you just want to have experience of working across several industries. Now, this career may be suited eventually for someone who has a plan to end up in policy or in regulation or in other aspects of government that will involve them having several understanding of various aspects of the economy. So that's something you really have to consider. Another thing that also has to go into your thinking is the flexibility to know that it's not exactly what you studied in university that you end up doing at times. There are people who have studied as medical doctors that are today in the finance industry. I have a friend studied as a medical doctor for several years and never practiced one single day, finished all his qualifications, but ended up switching into finance and today is a global portfolio manager. I have another friend who studied sociology and works as a network administrator and IT. He's actually one of the first people I call if there's a situation like someone hacked my account or something. He's that good. But guess what? He studied sociology in school. And then I have a lady friend as well too who studied banking and finance, got a master's degree, worked as an investment banker for years. But guess what she's doing today? She's producing shows for CNBC, BBC, and so many other media channels. So the question is, you have to recognize that what you studied in school is not may actually not be what you end up doing, but you need that flexibility of mind to recognize that your career path is suited to a number of things. So how exactly is the best way to go around this? I would like to give you three tips today. And the first one is your personality. That should be the first clue in deciding what sort of career option you want to go for. Because your personality, maybe you're an introvert or an extrovert, maybe you're a sanguine, maybe you're someone who's very jovial, maybe you're someone who's also always very serious, a melancholy. You need to understand your personality. Your personality will dictate to a large extent how you will respond to the requirements of the job. And so that's why there are some jobs that will require quite a lot of you that if your personality is not suited for, you will find a bit challenging. Take, for instance, if you're someone that is shy, self-effacing, doesn't like to spend too much time in groups or outside, you're an introvert, you enjoy spending time on your own reading, doing stuff by yourself, you'll find it more challenging than the average person if you end up in a career in sales. And what that means is that a career in sales will mean you have to be out there building relationships, marketing products, selling stuff, trying to persuade people to part with their money, which I tell you is not a very easy thing to do. So again, that is something that is not very suited to that personality. Doesn't mean you can't do it, but it just means that you might struggle compared to the average person who is probably an extrovert and is able to actually provide, or meet the requirements of that particular job quite easily. Number two is I'd like to encourage you to be patient and experiment. Now, be patient in the sense that you need to experiment with different career options and different jobs. So in the early part of your career, you have a lot of time on your side. You're a young person. You're just fresh out of the university. You can actually take a series of jobs within the first 2-3 years to test which career is actually best for you. Um, one of the things this really will help you to do is to actually understand if you are well suited for that career or if that career is for you. Because you can see what is required on that job. You can see if you have the ability, the attitude, the personality, the energy to actually provide those requirements. It's very critical you understand this because I had a very interesting experience with a young man I tried to hire once. I was trying to hire an analyst for my team at one of my previous employments. And this young man came across as someone who understood the requirements of the job, could answer my questions very intelligently. And even though I looked at his CV, I actually didn't notice one thing. Guess what? He actually was still a student in the university. He was in the final year of his course in the university. But during every holiday, he had taken internships during every holiday at different firms. So he had worked with firms similar to mine almost for about 2 years, using his breaks between semesters to actually get that experience. Whether he was paid or not, I don't know. But what I can assure you is that he had acquired experience and knowledge. Eventually, we couldn't hire him, but I put him on our watch list as one of the people our HR was to call for any role available once he gets out of the university, because everybody was convinced, from everybody who interviewed him was convinced that he was a very excellent hire and would be very suited for the role. So what am I saying here? Experimenting could be, well, if you're a student, your second year, your third year, that's the best time to start experimenting with some of the career options you're thinking about. You need to start thinking of going to, job fairs, start talking to recruiters, start talking to firms, start looking for internship in those firms, understanding what the requirements for those jobs are. You need to also be patient enough to know that if you take a job today, see if you can acquire as much understanding about what that role requires before you take a decision that, oh, this job is not for me. And then you can move on to something else. So that's number 2. You need to be patient and experiment. And then the third thing I'm going to leave you with today is you can actually do a couple of career tests online. There are a couple of universities that have various career test options, which you can go online and you can try them out. Those will tell you a lot more about your personality and if you're suited to certain career types or what sort of career types you can actually do. But what you can also do in addition to those career tests is also look at industry associations. Industry associations would often tell you what sort of career options you are open to when you take their qualifying exams. And so, for instance, if you take the CFA, it tells you if you know that you are able to slide into a career in investment banking, in research, in investment management, and various other aspects of the finance industry. If you take the accounting exams, ANAN, ICANN, ACCA, CPA, and so on, it suits you to a role in accounting. But you could be a cost accountant, you could be a management accountant, you could be a reserves accountant, you could be a production accountant with oil and gas companies. There are so many accounting roles that you might be able to slide into because of those qualifications. So those are options that you can consider as you start to decide on what sort of career you might want to eventually spend the rest of your life doing. Let me recap again. Number 1, look at your personality. Number 2, be patient and experiment. And then number 3, you can take a career test. And don't forget what I said before I started all this. You need to be patient, you need to be flexible, because what you studied may end up not being what you do. Okay, guys, so that's it for today. Join me next time, and I'll be talking about how to develop in your career, and I think that would be one that you'll find very useful. So don't forget to hit the subscribe button and also push the notification bell so that you know when the next video is released. Thank you, and stay tuned for content.